Greetings, 7th grade. Today we're talking about addition and subtraction inequalities. So today we learned how to plot basic inequalities when they're already given to you. Now we're going to talk about how do we work from an addition or subtraction inequality and find out the infinite set of solutions that comprises our answer. The infinite number of solutions. How do we plot that? How do we figure it out and then plot it? So get that name and date and title, and here we go. I chose this picture because it's familiar. It's how I've explained a couple things in the past, and it's how I'm going to explain inequalities again. But I want you to notice something different. You don't have to write this down now, but this is the scales of injustice. So we're used to the scales of justice because they're balanced, and we know that we could represent justice with balanced scales, but this is injustice. So when we're solving inequalities, the first thing we're going to do is to draw the scales of injustice. So make sure you have that note. Step number 2 is going to be to locate the variable per usual, and step number 3 is to isolate the variable by undoing what's been done or using the inverse operation. Again, we have a variable as a symbol which stands for an unknown number. So you got to know that. So make sure you have those notes and move along with me. We're going to look at this example and try and figure out what do we think this represents. Well, what do I see here? I see x and 3 positives, and so I think that could be represented as x plus 3. And on the right hand side we have 3 rows of 4. 3 rows of 4. That's how I would show that. So we have 12. Now, we don't have equality, so I'm not going to use an equal sign. We're going to use one of those inequality symbols we talked about today. And in this case, we know that this side is heavier. The left side is heavier, so we'll use the greater than sign. So you have x plus 3 is greater than 12. Please make sure that you draw this. This will be example 1. So please draw this picture with me and work through it. We're going to draw the scales of injustice. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say we need to find the variable, it's x, and isolate it by undoing what's been done. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Now what I want you to realize here is that we now have 9. What I want you to realize here is that this makes sense if we were to physically do it as well. If you had scales that were off balance, you didn't know what was the weight of this x box, but you knew that on one side you have the x box and 3 tiles, and on the opposite side you have 12 tiles. You could say to yourself, if it's unbalanced now and the left side is heavier, if I remove 3 same size boxes from either side, it should stay imbalanced in the exact same way. That's why this inequality symbol stays the same as it falls down. That makes sense. So a simpler idea of what we could say is if x plus 3 is greater than 12, then I know that what's in that x box has to be greater than 9. It's heavier than 9. So I know that if we have this heavier than 9, then when I add 3 to both sides, then this left side would be heavier than 12. That makes sense. So I just wanted you guys to see that. We're going to move along to example 2, and we're going to plot this one, but you don't need to draw it. We're going to solve it and then plot our answer. So again, first step is to draw the scales of injustice. Second is to locate our variable. In this case, it's m. Third is to undo what's been done, so we'll add 26 to both sides. Again, I'm going to ask you to show your work just as I do, instead of just writing my answers, or else that's lazy. And we get m being greater than 69. Now we talked about how to plot that today. The first is to draw a line, which again extends infinitely in both directions. We want our focus point in the middle. This is 69, that's what we're concerned with. And it's an open circle because we know that m cannot be equal to 69. We're going to also plot a couple left, show that we know where we are on the number line. So we'll plot 69 along with 68 and 70, numbers that are bigger and less, so we can show that we know how this number line looks and works. And m can be any value that's greater. We know that greater numbers on the number line are to the right. So m can be any number that's greater. So you should be shading just as I do. Show that we shade the solution. Anything that could make this true, anything we could put in for m and make it true is shaded. So 70 minus 26 is greater than 43, so it's shaded. Let's go on to the next one. Here we have negative 16 is greater than or less than g minus 9. So we'll draw the scales of injustice. We'll look at our variable as g, undo what's been done by adding 9 to both sides. It's going to take a little thought here because we have positives and negatives being put together. My symbol falls down just the same. And we say that negative 16 plus 9 have more negatives than positives, but they're different signs, so they cancel each other out. 9 cancel out, we're left with 7 negatives. Now if I'm going to plot this, this is the one we say gets a little tricky, or a little bit trickier. So we're focused on negative 7, and I know that to the right of negative 7, a number that's larger is negative 6, which is weird because we're on that. Not weird, it makes sense, but different than what you might be used to from earlier classes. Now we know that it can be equal to negative 7, so we're going to fill in this circle because it could be equal to negative 7. G could be equal. But here's the thing, we need to read and figure out what could G be. So one way to do this is to say, read it from right to left, and G is on the smaller side of this symbol, so it's a less than or equal to negative 7. Another way to think about this is, which of these, negative 8 or negative 6, could I plug in for G and make this true? If I plug in negative 8, is negative 7 greater than or equal to negative 8? It is, so 8 should be shaded. That's a correct answer as well. That's one strategy, is plug in these numbers. Negative 6, if I plug in negative 6, it would be saying negative 7 is greater than or equal to negative 6. That's not true. So G cannot be on the left. It has to be on the right because negative 8 does make sense. Or you can read it from right to left. Another way you could do it is just to rewrite this with the variable on the left-hand side and know, okay, the mouth of the alligator is opening towards negative 7. So it might be easier for you to say, okay, I'll just try and rewrite this, expressing the same idea, but I'll just flip everything. So it's easier kind of to say G is less than or equal to negative 7. Okay, if it's less, then we'll shade the left-hand side. So there you go. Make sure you have all that work and you've plotted it as well. For your homework, I'm going to leave you with these two, and I'm going to ask that you not only solve them, but that you also plot these as well. We'll do some more in class tomorrow, but I'll see you then.